fresh off of a very exciting, very solid election. Her first as the official Jefferson County Clerk. We have Miss Jeannie Goff here. Jeannie, would you mind coming on, working your way on up? We're going to get you mic'd up as well. I know you knew this was coming. But
put it on your lapel here so we get it recorded nicely.
We are actually going to be recording Jeannie talking throughout this process.
Because everybody wants to hear that.
And we're going to be putting that on our YouTube channel. So I don't know how much Billy's going to be editing it.
Does that work?
A lot.
That's a lot.
We're good.
I'm going to have you
It's like
come
a
back
flower.
here though, Jeannie. If you want, you can remove the microphone. I can get this podium out of your way. It's up
Yeah, I
to
can
you
use the
on how you
podium.
want to do it.
Oh, I can send my paper.
And then at the end of this, what we're going to do is we'll have some time for questions. I'm going to grab this other microphone, and as you all have any questions for her, I'm going to repeat them into the microphone so that anybody who's not here can hear them on the video, and then Jeannie, you'll have time to answer the question. All right, without further ado, I'll get out of the way. Ms. Jeannie Goff.
Did you want to move that one? Did you say you're going to move that one?
No,
Well, I don't know. Will it go into two of them?
No, I shouldn't.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
the first time we're doing it.
I don't know. So I'm the guinea pig.
Hey, just, when you have questions, hold this until the green light comes on.
Okay, so I'm not a big speech giver, but I figured I'd come here and give you some information about elections and how we handle what happens after election day and how the results are tallied and how the verification process goes. Because there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there, so I'd like to get the right information out there to you. Because we all know that secure and strong voting processes is what's the most vital interest for most people out there right now that's going on. So let me just get my glasses on here so I don't skip anything. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is that our voting system. We have a single unit process of a unison optical scan voting system. So that's paper ballots. Jefferson County has paper ballots. We don't have direct recording devices. We don't have the electronics like other counties did in the state of Missouri at one time. We are strictly paper ballots. We do have ADA compliant ballot marking devices. So those who have blindness or of any physical disability where it's hard for them to color in the oval, we do have a touch screen that they can mark what they want to vote on, and it prints the ballot out for them. They take and look at that ballot, make sure it's exactly what they want, then they go put it in the same ballot box that the other paper ballots go in. That's what Jefferson County has. Okay. We've never had anything on the internet. None of our voting tabulation system is on the internet. We don't have it. We don't have it on our networks at the county. None of that can be ever hacked on the internet. Okay, so that covers our voting machines. Our voting machines, well, let's finish this part. The voting machines actually then are password protected. Every election, there's a new password for it. The passwords are unique and they're strong, and they're, like I said, they're changed every election. So with that said, those are set up before every election to make sure they're secure. So the passwords are not repeated. We have bipartisan teams that supervise the programming. Once the two machines are tested and publicly tested, then the bipartisan teams watch that we secure the voting machines, and then they're ready and secure for each election. Let's see, what else do we have on those? Oh, and the last thing on the machines then is that there's always a paper audit trail. The ballot itself, plus the auditing that we have on the reports that we can get from that tabulation system. What we do with the ballots for absentees is that we have bipartisan teams come in and they handle the absentee ballots to make sure that all the affidavits have been signed and notarized if required before those ballots can be tabulated. Then those are tabulated on election day through optical scanners that we have in the office, and then the bipartisan team uploads that results into the main system that you see the results election night. Verification board is probably one of the biggest things that people are probably going to understand what the process, what we do. That's where a lot of the misconception is. On the verification board, they come in a couple days after the election, and they have certain requirements through the state and federal government. they have to manually hand count a minimum by the state code of regulations, 3 polling places. They have to hand tally 3 polls. We did a lot more than that for this past election, just for this election. And we do this all the time. We did all of the polls for Crystal City School Board because they had less than half of 1% for the 3rd place position. We did all of the polls for Windsor School Board because they had a tie for the 3rd place position, which is 5 polls plus. We did 3 polls for the Jefferson County Health Board, and we did 2 polls for the Dunklin Fire. Those were hand tallied by bipartisan teams. Now, who is the verification board? The bipartisan team. Some of the people are selected from the list that we get from the Republican and Democrat Central Committee. And then we have people that we call in because they're veterans. They know how the system works. They know what needs to be done. We have lead teams that kind of correlate with the different teams there. One of the people that served on this April verification board is here tonight. You all might know him, Gene McCullough. He learned a lot from us and he helped us out a lot, so it worked out really well. So with that said, we did a lot more than that is required, and we have always done that. I've always, pushed the county clerks at the time before me that we need to do more than what's required to make sure that the system is tallying everything correctly. In addition to that, the law requires that we machine rerun a precinct. It came up exactly because the machine's programmed to tally exactly like it should. One thing I want to talk about with the verification board, which was everyone's always was questioning, we had the tie for Windsor School Board. And then, of course, 3 candidates got 1 more vote. I had calls like they didn't understand, well, how did they get 1 more vote? Where did that other vote come from? So let me explain. When you go to the polls, and for Windsor School Board, it was a vote for 3, and they had 4 candidates. To understand the different types of votes, if you vote for 3 candidates, that's a good solid vote. It's perfect. The machine's going to take it. But if you overvote and you vote for 4, by voting for 4, you voted for 4 instead of 3, that's an overvote. But let's say you voted for the first person and then you started marking the second person, you're like, oh, I didn't want that one. You put a big X in it, and then you color in the 3rd person and the 4th person. The machine doesn't know that you're going, oh, I didn't want that one. Some people were like, not this one. The machine doesn't read that. They read the color targets that you color in. And when the verification board hand tallied the Windsor School Board polls, one of the ballots had that. So according to the state of Missouri Code of State Regulations with the Secretary of State's office, they have guidelines in their codes that states what the intent of the voter is and if you should count it or not. And that is one of the examples. That is an overvote ballot, but in this case, the intent is shown. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people just vote because one race might say vote for 3 and they think they just should vote for 3 on everything because they're not reading the instructions on every district or in every race. And you have to do that. They're so used to the primary and the generals, they should vote for 1, right? It's pretty common. But in April, there's such a difference. Sometimes it's vote for 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. And each year it changes on school boards. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2. And so sometimes they just don't catch it. So we get a lot of overvoted races in April because of that. Most of the time, what happens is the ballot will get kicked out at the polling place, and the voter has a choice. It's called the second chance voting. The federal law came in. Well, if it kicks back out, it'll get a little receipt and it'll say, oh, overvoted race, school board. Well, obviously we don't know who that voter was in the situation because a lot of voters came in that day. A couple things could have happened. The voter could have said, I don't have time to fix it, I just want my ballot to count everything else. Because what the tabulation system is going to do is skip that overvoted race and count everything else that they voted on the ballot correctly. If it was my ballot, I would want at least everything else to count correctly. And that's how we train the election workers. You have an override that you put the ballot through, press a button, it'll take the ballot and override that one race, but count everything on the ballot And of course, then it's keep counting a ballot for that voter. So the number of signatures matches the number of ballots. Now, another thing that occurs, what people don't understand, is undervotes. If you don't vote for 3 in a school board race, you don't have to. You can vote for one person. But that's also considered an undervote. And in a vote for 3, if you only vote for one person, then that's 2 undervotes. So you have to count that for every race, for every ballot, for what that voter had done. So that's where there changes, people don't understand the undervote sometimes. But most of the time, an overvoted ballot is going to get corrected if the voter chooses to. The other thing with an overvote is if the voter didn't pay attention, they put their ballot in the ballot box, and I'm in a hurry, I got to get to work. They take off, they don't pay attention that the ballot was rejected. The next voter comes up, or the judge watching the polls or the ballot box trying to keep up with them, realizes that there's a ballot there, they check their totals, make sure they're going to balance if they submit that ballot. The law states if the ballot was left on the ballot box, we have to count it. Now, if a voted ballot was found somewhere else laying around in the poll, the law says we don't count it. We would just found a abandoned ballot. So that's the difference. Y'all are so quiet. It's not like training election workers because they're chitty chatty, the whole time. So but it's good because they're all trying to figure out what's going on. But those are the standard counting rules that we have. And so those things we have to follow. Everything we do in elections is pretty much black and white. There's very little gray area that we get to just make a decision on. We have, if it's not statutes, it's the code of regulations. So that kind of covered that process. Trying to see what else. I think I talked about all of that. I mean, I can talk about all kinds of things that we do in our office. I don't know if I can stand here and bore you on all of it, but our biggest thing is that we want people to understand that, when it comes to election authority, that we are here for all the people. It doesn't matter what party or what office or what, district you're in or not. We have to make sure that everyone's vote counts, and whatever comes out with that result is just the correct result, and that's what our job is. I know that there are a lot of misinformation about our machines, and we want people to understand that we're not IT in our office, and so we do everything we can to verify before and after an election that the votes are going to be tallied correctly. And that's why we have paper ballots, and that's why we do the hand counts that we do excessively more than we are required.
All right, so thank you, Jeannie. One of the questions that I have is, can you tell us a little bit about the voter turnout for this April relative to other April elections?
Well, at 12% turnout, it was average. It's average lately for April. A few years ago, it was closer to 20%, but as the years have gone on, it just gets less and less. I don't know.
Is there a number you'd like to see, or is that not something that comes out of your office?
Well, we like to see people showing up for all
100%.
Elections, and sometimes it's almost scary on a presidential when we didn't have as turnout as what I thought we would have. We had higher turnouts in the past. It's just a matter of people getting enough interest to get out there and vote. I don't know. Voter apathy is a huge thing, and I don't know.
So I believe it's required to have a photo ID now in the room.
Yes.
So the question was about voter ID, a picture ID for voter ID, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I need this one now or what?
What's,
I don't know. This doesn't sound like it's on.
yeah, so this is all new. This is for them. This is for them.
Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. Sorry.
Jim?
I've actually got 2 questions on the ballots. When do you guys start counting the absentee ballots? And then what about provisional ballots?
So when do you, yeah, so the question is when do you start counting absentee ballots, and what about provisional ballots?
Absentee ballots are verified starting the Thursday before each election. So they are verified and getting processed so that they can be tabulated on election day. Then provisional ballots, for an April election, the only type of provisional ballot that was allowed was what we call the blue provisional, which is for ID only. And so if someone came into the poll and didn't have their photo ID, then they could fill out the documentation, which is a lot of private information on the voter. Then they would vote their ballot, seal it in that blue envelope. The election workers would give it to us election night. Then the verification board would be given any documentation that we can find on that voter, along with their signature, to see if they could verify that that was the voter. That voter, though, has an opportunity on election day to go back to the poll with their ID if they can get there before 7, which is most common. They say, oh, I'm gonna go get my ID. Sometimes they just don't vote yet and they go do it and come back. But those are the options.
We can only do so much, Eliana. I think there was a
I
question
get it,
over
it was
here.
driving me crazy.
Maybe two questions. Where are the machines stored in between elections? And the follow-up question is, if they're electric, are they plugged in while they're being stored?
So the question is where are the machines stored when they're not in use? And if they're electric, are they plugged in or are they battery operated?
So we have, in our election center warehouse, is where we store our security cages that houses all of our voting equipment. And then they are not plugged in because they're bagged back up and sealed in the cages.
Okay, these picture IDs, what, do you have to have a certain type of picture ID, like driver's license?
So the question is, do you need a specific type of voter ID?
What's allowable?
What's the law as far as the photo IDs?
According to the law, you can use your driver's license or state ID. You can use your passport or veterans military ID, as long as they have the photo.
Mr. Neal?
Is there any restrictions on the communications that the poll workers can have during the voting hours?
Restrictions on communications of poll
Calling in and
workers
out and so forth.
during working hours.
Yes.
I might need some more clarification. Communication with him.
Well, I don't know. Could they call out and give partial results?
By law, they cannot release any information before the close of the polls on election day. That's my oath. You hear how fast I said that?
Aliana?
I just want to say something to that. Poll workers cannot see results while they're at the poll.
Poll workers cannot see results while they're at the polls.
You can see how many people voted, and that's it. So you don't get to see anything like that. You can't release any of that information if you wanted to. So.
Right. The ballot boxes are locked until the end of the night, unless there would be some kind of mechanical issue with one of the machines. But to the most part, the ballot boxes are not open until after the last voter has voted after 7 p.m.
I'm going to start holding it for you. Any other questions?
So
Mr. Farmer?
with this new voter ID, did you have any issues with that? Any complaints, any problems?
Any issues with the voter ID, the photo IDs specifically?
We haven't had any issue with it from the get-go. We have a few people that did forget to bring it, thinking that they could still use the voter information card, but they had no problem getting their ID. I don't think we had one complaint. I think it's my height.
Let me try to hold it.
Maybe it's my height. But yeah, we didn't have any complaints about that at all. They were all fine with showing their ID. Sure, question.
Yes.
Why does the machine reject when you stick the thing in? Because that happened to me.
Why does or why would the machine
Yeah.
reject a ballot whenever you go to put it in?
There's a couple reasons that the voting tabulation machines will reject. One is what we talked about was an overvoted ballot, and a little receipt would pop out that would, like an error message, and it would state, overvoted ballot, Windsor School Board, or overvoted ballot, President. It will tell you exactly which office, if you did it multiple times, that type of thing. So it gives you a second chance to fix your ballot and go vote again. Another reason that it'll kick out, because people don't read the instructions sometimes because they're just in a hurry. And instead of coloring in the target boxes, they're circling the names or putting a check mark by the name. So the machine is programmed to color or to read, just like your old school test, color in the little target boxes. So if you do that, it knows what to read. And so if you don't color in those boxes, it's going to kick it back out and say blank voted ballot. And it gives that voter a chance to do it right.
All right, it looks like that's all of our questions. Do you have any other comments or any follow-ups that you would like to make?
No.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeannie. That was